My name is Matthew Stanfield. I'm a husband, father of 7, and a grandfather of 1 for now. I'm also principal architect and owner at Field 9 Architecture in Mansfield, Ohio. Having moved to Mansfield, Ohio in 1997, I have become rooted in the community. I obtained my Master of Architecture from The Ohio State University in 2003 and my professional license in the state of Ohio in 2005. My first job in architecture was with Marion Zog, architect and designer, a small firm here in Mansfield, Ohio. I worked for Marion from 1997 until 2008 when I was laid off. Since then, I've worked to build Field 9 Architecture and to carve out a space in the Mansfield, Richland County area and beyond for our own brand of architecture. Community-minded architecture with a modern sensibility and an eye towards sustainability. We do what we can to play our part and encourage and promote innovation and cultural relevance through design that reflects current times and technology and looks to the future sustainability of the building specifically and the planet generally. In 2010, I'd committed to the long-term prospect of running my own firm. After having tentatively practiced under my own name for a year or so, I wanted a name that reflected my architectural interests. I tend to view architecture as a matrix of sorts, an environment in which human activity develops. For various reasons, I shied away from using matrix in the name of the fledgling firm, not the least of which being another firm in Ohio was already operating under that name. Not wanting to let go of the ideas embodied in the term matrix, I settled on field as a synonymous word that had similar connotations. A field can be many things. It can be highly structured, or it can be unstructured, or anywhere in between. In any case, a field establishes boundaries, serves as a backdrop for human activity. It does not exist as an end in itself, nor should architecture. Field also happens to be the last half of my last name, as well as the last half of the name of the town in which I reside and have established my practice. For whatever reason, though, field architecture just did not do it for me. I decided to append the numeral 9 to the name. It has some architectural significance as a reference to the 9-square grid as an organizational principle. Like field, it has personal significance as well, in that with our 7 children, we have 9 people in our family. The most recent project we have completed is the first phase of the renovation of a 72,000 square foot space for the Richland School of Academic Arts, the charter school that my children attend. It was a whirlwind process that we could never have completed without an excellent client, an understanding contractor, and having made the recent switch to Vectorworks. We went from pre-design to bidding in 3.5 weeks. While this is in no way an ideal situation to be in, the circumstances were such that this is the way it had to play out. In the end, everyone is happy and the school is in session, more or less on time. One of the best parts of the project was the design process. Normally, we are given a program and site and maybe some idea of how the client would like the spaces to work, and then left more or less to our own devices to come up with a design. Because of the tight timeline, we were able to work closely with the client on the design of the space. We held a 2-day design charrette with the superintendent and dean of students, during which we spent 8 hours each day with them working out the design together. This was a new experience for us and one I would like to replicate on future projects, though not necessarily with the same time constraints. The immediate feedback was invaluable and allowed us to come up with a very good solution in a very short amount of time. One of the flavors of sustainability is the adaptive reuse of a building. A couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to work with Ben and Cindy Lash to convert a 1911 bank building in Shelby, Ohio into the Vault Wine Barn. There were several challenges to overcome related to the code requirements surrounding going from a business to an assembly use. But we were able to work through these challenges and come up with a solution that proved to be economically viable for the owner and to meet the needs of the wine barn. Much of the work ended up being back of house, as the main space was still in very good condition, requiring only a bit of new flooring and a coat of paint. We were able to concentrate the limited budget on creating a feature piece in the bar that incorporates granite from the old teller counters and complements the old bank vault for which the restaurant is named. One way in which we strive to be community-minded in our practice of architecture is through civic projects. We had the opportunity to design a new pavilion for South Park in Mansfield. Because we were replacing a pavilion that had been there for 80+ years, we had to tread somewhat lightly and make sure we were engaging the stakeholders in the design process to the greatest extent possible. While this was no easy task, we were able to gather community input and incorporate many of the desired amenities into the new pavilion. While budget constraints did not allow us to realize the design to its fullest, we were able to distill it down to its essential form and strip away some of the superfluous features that would certainly have added to the overall experience of the pavilion, though they were not essential to the function. One such feature was a living roof. Another was a feature wall displaying some artwork that had been generated by children participating in a summer art program held in the previous pavilion. While it was difficult to let these things go, the budget simply could not support them. Regardless, the new pavilion stands as a symbol of a renewed commitment by the city to the park system. Sustainability comes in several flavors and has many nuanced aspects, some of which are not generally considered, at least not in terms of sustainability. I do not think that sustainability is equivalent to green. The terms seem to get used interchangeably, but there is much more to sustainability, and while the standard fare of green features certainly plays a large role in the overall sustainability of a project, there are at least two other aspects that need to be considered as well: the client and the community. Architecture should sustain and be sustained by both the individual client and the larger community in which it exists. Not only does a project need to be earth-friendly in that it is not contributing to the deterioration of the planet through irresponsible use of resources, but it also must sustain the client. It must be comfortable to be in, it must be affordable to the client. Similarly, it must be sustainable by the client. A building that costs too much to build, operate, or maintain will eventually be abandoned or bring the client to ruin. Additionally, it must contribute to the cultural context in which it is built. It should not be a burden visually or economically to the community, but should enhance and add value to the community. Architecture exists in a larger cultural context. It is not a lone or solitary act. It has ramifications on the community. It is a cultural act that serves as a means to engage community. Through architecture, space is generated that establishes a distinct relationship with the local community, as well as the broader cultural context in which it exists. This space is a space of activity and engagement. It is not stagnant, nor is it neutral. Rather, it informs the activity that takes place in it by establishing parameters. In so doing, though, it must remain flexible, not dictating activity, but enabling it, and in some cases, prescribing. As such, it becomes a scaffolding upon which our communities are built, both physically and culturally. Community-mindedness is at the core of our practice. From the very beginning, we started establishing ourselves in the community through community engagement and volunteerism. In so doing, we have not only established a reputation for ourselves, but have also made ourselves more approachable. Even as we have become more and more busy with the practice and our community involvement has waned a bit, we have not abandoned our roots. Mansfield is a great place right now for someone who wants to be actively engaged in grassroots community efforts. We are on the rebound, and dare I say, on the cusp of a renaissance of sorts. The opportunities abound for someone to get involved and make a difference in the community, from urban agriculture to revamping our infrastructure to be more friendly for all users. There's enough going on that everyone can find a place to plug in if they so desire, and it is largely through grassroots efforts. Concerned citizens coming together to invest in making our community's future. So in some sense, it has been easy to be community-minded. On the other hand, it can be difficult as there are so many groups, organizations, and causes that get involved in that it can pull you in too many different directions if you are not careful, something I am not always. Several years ago, I was pretty heavily involved with a Google Plus group headed by Jess Stafford called Big Time Small Firm. We were having frequent Google Hangout events which Jess moderated. Novedge also had a strong presence in the group and even had a representative participate in some of the Hangouts. It was this involvement and engagement that drew me to Novedge when I was looking for a new software package. Habitat for Humanity is a great organization. Providing affordable housing is a key way that architecture can engage and inform the culture of the community in which it exists. Unfortunately, that housing is often perfunctory. While I had been volunteering with the local habitat providing general labor on builds and reclamation projects, there had been little opportunity to provide architectural services. When I came across an article about several habitat affiliates working with relatively well-known architects in their areas to generate innovative, affordable housing, my interest was piqued. I mentioned something to our local affiliate about the program, and they wanted to speak to me further. They had a lot in a neighboring community that was too narrow for their standard build. The buildable area of the lot was only 16 feet after setbacks, so they were looking for some alternative ideas. Needless to say, we jumped on the opportunity and came up with a design that was deemed too modern for their tastes. They never did end up building on the site, but it was a great experience for us. It is always fun to design with such tight constraints, even if it does not see the light of day. I recently made the almost complete transition to Vectorworks. It has been a nearly 2-year process that was cemented with the Richland School of Academic Arts project mentioned earlier. It really was a lifesaver on that project. Previous to making that transition, we primarily used High Design by iLexsoft. It was a solid 2D CAD package, but we really felt the need to move into the world of BIM and have largely transitioned away from using High Design, though we will break it out every now and again for smaller projects as we find it can sometimes be quicker. While we will continue to move towards using Vectorworks almost exclusively for production work, we utilize FormZ Junior for some 3D conceptualization. It is a great tool for quickly roughing out and visualizing ideas. AutoCAD Lite for Mac is also in our repertoire, though we seldom use it. Basically, we have it for clients that require AutoCAD files and to help coordinate with consultants who work in AutoCAD. Even then, we will do the bulk of the work in another program and then bring it into AutoCAD for the finishing touches. We also make use of Pixelmator on occasion for presentations and to manipulate images for the blog. For me, the biggest perk, and also the biggest hurdle, is the flexibility it affords me. Having 6 of our 7 children still living at home and active in school activities, it is invaluable to be able to arrange my schedule to be as involved as I can in their lives. There's still not enough time in the day to do everything, but it sure helps to be able to stop working early to get the children where they need to be and watch them participate. Working on my own terms, I get to choose, to a large extent, what projects to work on and when to work on them. Community involvement is greatly facilitated by being my own boss. A lot of the organizations I get involved with meet during normal business hours. When I was working for someone else, it really would not have been feasible to be as involved as I can be now. My undergraduate degree is in philosophy, which really goes hand in hand with my architectural training. Out of that, I've developed the ability to creatively problem solve as well as a critical outlook on life, not taking things at face value, but digging deeper to find the logic and reason behind something. My work is engaged in the cultural dialogue, rooted in place, and invested in community.